A food forest can be created in a large or a small space. And in this video, I'm going to share 12 base plants that I would include in a food forest, no matter what size. A food forest can be an incredibly productive and fruitful space, even on a small scale with good plant selection. It will also create great habitat for nature, encourage beneficial insects into your space, and also look beautiful. So it is a real win-win in my eyes, especially if you haven't got a huge amount of time in your week for gardening. Once established, a food forest can take a lot less effort than annual vegetable gardening, but it will still need some tending and maintenance, just to be clear. Perennial plants do tend to be a lot more drought tolerant as well, so they offer good resilience going forward. So here are my top 12 plants that I feel would create the basis for a great small-scale food forest. I'm going to start with 3 trees that will create the canopy layer of your food forest. And whilst I'm sure we would all love to be experimenting with exotic plants and tropical tastes, I feel that particularly if you're gardening on a small space, it's important to stick to crops and plants that will offer you good yield. So number 1 on my list is the apple tree. And apples grow really well for us here in the UK. And 2 varieties that we have found to be fairly consistent for us are King of the Pippins and also Ellison's Orange. Apples are really versatile. We can eat them fresh and we can cook with them. So I feel this is a top tree for a small space food forest. Tree number 2 that I'm going to suggest is another one that classically grows well for us here in the UK, and that is the plum tree. And as you can see, this is a fairly small tree and it is covered in beautiful fruits. And of course, remember, when you're selecting your fruit trees, you can choose what rootstock you order them on, and the rootstock will determine how quickly a tree grows big or how small it will stay. Plums are amazing. They are beautiful eaten straight from the tree, and there are lots of ways you can preserve them. They can be frozen, they can be made into jam, you can poach them in sugar. Another classic flavour. Tree number 3 on my list is the elderberry. And I love elderberries because they are so medicinal. They also have the benefit of giving you 2 harvests throughout the year once they are established. You can harvest the flowers and make things like cordial or champagne earlier in the year. And then towards the end of summer, if you've left some of the flowers on the tree, which I would highly recommend, you will then get the elderberries. And elderberries are so medicinal. They are incredibly high in antioxidants and lots of health-giving properties. And I make elderberry syrup every year for winter. The elderberries in our food forest are actually only a few years old, so they're still quite small and only just getting going. But once established, elderberries can grow really fast, so they can also be used as biomass and used in practices such as chop and drop to give back to your soil as well. And as you can see, Murphy loves hanging out in the food forest. If you would love to see more of Murphy in our videos and you appreciate him, then drop some hearts down into the comments so that we know you'd like to see more of Murphy too. So now we've covered the canopy plants for our food forest, I'm going to move to the understory layers. And number 4 on my list is black currants. And I love black currants for quite a few reasons. Number 1, we have found in our food forest they were one of the first things to start providing crops for us after we planted the food forest. So they get going really quickly, which is super rewarding. I also find that most years the birds tend to leave black currants alone for us here. Let me know if you experience the same or different in your gardens in the comments down below. Black currants are incredibly versatile too. You can eat them fresh, you can preserve them. I just actually made a blackcurrant chutney for the first time this year, and it tastes delicious. It's the middle of July now and our blackcurrants are almost finished for the year, but I tend to find for us here in the south, they start any time from the middle of June. Really valuable crop for us in the food forest. Strawberries that you can hopefully see dotted throughout this bed behind me here are number 5 on my list. Strawberries offer a great edible ground cover in a food forest, and I would recommend planting these in the lighter, brighter areas of your food forest because they do require full sun to really grow well and to ripen the fruits fast enough. So we have them more on the outskirts of the food forest now, and I find that strawberries are the first of the summer flavours to get going for us here, sometimes starting as soon as the middle of May. Korean mint is plant number 6 on my list, and this is the first year that I have grown this plant and I am absolutely in love with it. The flavour is aniseedy, sweet and very slightly minty, a real refreshing flavour, and I am absolutely loving it in teas. And I'm sure for the adventurous cooks out there, it would add really good flavour to food as well. I love this plant because it has really beautiful big purple flowers on top, so it is great for the beneficial insects. And whilst it is a mint plant, it's actually a clump forming plant, so that it's not going to have the same spreading habits that common mint has, so should be much easier to control. I'll drop a shot of a plant that we've got growing up in our main growing beds, which has grown on a lot stronger because we've been watering up there more. These plants have had very minimal water and that is why they have stayed small, but it is a perennial plant, so it should be fairly hardy, and I'm confident that these plants will have a permanent place in our food forest from now on. Mashua is plant number 7 on my list, and I think that this plant ticks a lot of boxes for food forests. It gives us both a climbing layer to our food forest and also an underground layer. You can eat the leaves of Mashua, you can add them to salad, in sandwiches. They're slightly spicy tasting. The flowers, when they come late in the year, are also edible. They're beautiful orange trumpet flowers. And then underground, Mashua grows from a white tuber, and those tubers will spread over time as the plant gets established. And you can harvest the tubers in winter. You can cook them in the oven. We love to roast them until they go really creamy and soft. You can also use them raw, and they are super spicy, grated into things like coleslaw to give a real good flavour. Mashua is sometimes referred to as perennial nasturtium, and you might be able to see the resemblance from the very similar looking leaves. However, the flowers on this plant are really quite different. This one here that you can see is just getting established. I only put the tubers in the ground here this year, and it has been a very hard growing season. We've had a lot of dry, hot weather, and we don't have the water capacity here to water our food forest a great deal. So again, this plant has had really minimal water, but it is still holding its own and growing on. And over the next year, this plant will get established and it will completely cover this teepee in time and look absolutely stunning. Plant number 8 for me is the classic rose. And this variety here is a climbing rose. It is Rosa rugosa alba. And this is the real classic rose for giving you big, juicy rose hips. And that is one of the reasons why I love having roses in the food forest. Their hips are amazingly nutritious and medicinal and can be harvested later in the year. I also did an early harvest of roses when they first flowered in spring, and then I was harvesting the rose petals, which I've dried and I use in teas. And of course, roses also offer pure enjoyment and beauty with their amazing flowers. I've got another 5 roses throughout our food forest. The other roses are shrub roses, so for some people they may be easier to manage and stay smaller. And all of them are equally medicinal, and I have been harvesting the petals off all of them. They are all edible, and having a mixture of colours just looks absolutely divine. Comfrey is a must-have for any food forest and is number 9 on my list. Comfrey will bring up minerals from deep within the soil. It can be used for chop and drop to add to your soil, and the insects absolutely love it. Added to that, you can also use it to make your own fertilizer by soaking it in water. Top food forest plant number 10 for me is Perennial Kale. And Perennial Kale is a lot hardier, I find, than some of the annual kales, and it can usually last for up to 3 or 4 years, so it's a short-lived perennial. However, you can take cuttings of the side shoots as the plants mature, and they will root really, really easily. I bought Perennial Kale once, and we have got many, many plants of it now, and I've had it growing on our land here for at least 6 or 7 years, I would say. Perennial Kale is great because obviously the leaves, when young, can be used raw in salads and coleslaws, and it is also really, really beautiful to cook with. And this particular variety, Taunton Dean, I absolutely love the colour of the purple stems and how it stands out against the green leaf. And it's pretty tough love in our food forest, particularly on years like this when water is really precious. But again, if you have got a smaller space and you can care for your plants really well, Perennial Kale will get incredibly big, and one plant, once established, would be more than enough greens for most people. And if you give a little thought to how you place the plant, you would also be able to cover it in net to protect it from the cabbage white butterflies at certain times of the year and allow it to continue to grow on really strong and healthy. I really value having fresh herbs to hand, and if I had to choose just one for both culinary flavour and medicinal properties, it would be rosemary. I absolutely love the flavour of rosemary, and I also really enjoy using it in teas and in herbal tinctures. So rosemary is number 11 on my must-have food forest plants. And finally, plant number 12 on my list is raspberries, specifically autumn fruiting raspberries, because this variety has the added benefit of often giving you 2 crops in 1 year. If you don't cut them back in winter, you can get an early summer crop, and then the new shoots will come through and also give you an autumn crop of raspberries. Another benefit that I notice some years with autumn fruiting raspberries is that the birds tend to steal them less in the autumn too. Raspberries are a super productive, low maintenance fruit. Now they can spread quite readily. So if you do plant them in the ground, that can take a little bit of management, but that can simply be as easy as mowing around the block of raspberries that you've got, if you plant it in a way that that can be done. If you are growing on a particularly small space and management of them is a little challenging for you, then you can also grow them in a really big tub. I would recommend going for the biggest tub you can possibly manage, and do make sure that you keep them well watered. I really hope this video has been useful to you, particularly if you are thinking of starting a food forest or if you are new to gardening. Be sure to drop us a comment down below and let us know. Also, let us know with a comment if you think that we have missed a particular plant from our list of top 12. We would love to hear from you. If this video has been valuable, we would massively appreciate if you could click the thumbs up button, as this really helps to get our videos out there and seen by more people. Thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll see you here again soon. Peace and plants.